There comes a moment in every life when the noise around you gets louder than the voice within you. You feel it in the quiet hesitation before you speak, in the way you rehearse your words before saying them, in the strange pressure to smile when your soul is tired. Somewhere along the way, you began living as though every room were a courtroom and every face were a verdict. You started editing yourself, shrinking your truth, softening your edges, and calling it peace. But it was never peace. It was surrender dressed up as politeness. Maybe you've spent years trying to be easy to like. Maybe you've avoided conflict, hidden your real opinion, or said yes when your entire body was begging to say no. You tell yourself you are being reasonable, mature, adaptable. But deep down, you know the cost. Every time you trade honesty for approval, something inside you weakens. Not all at once. Quietly, slowly, like a door closing in a house you still live in. And the strange part is this: most of the people whose opinions you fear are not even watching as closely as you imagine. They are busy with their own insecurities, their own performances, their own need to be seen. Yet you keep standing under an invisible spotlight, acting like your life must be approved by an audience that never truly had the authority to judge it. That is the trap. Not criticism itself, but the spell it casts on a man who forgets who he is. A wise man once said that if you are disturbed by anything external, the pain is not caused by the thing itself, but by your estimate of it. That truth has survived centuries because it is real. The world will always have opinions. Friends will misunderstand you. Strangers will misread you. Even family may question the path you choose. But if your identity rises and falls with every reaction, you will never stand on solid ground. You will live like a leaf in the wind, moved by every gust, belonging to no direction of your own. So let me ask you something honest. Whose approval have you been chasing, and what has it already cost you? Your peace? Your confidence? Your time? Your calling? If you have felt that quiet ache of self-betrayal, you are not alone. But this is where the journey begins. Not with arrogance. Not with rebellion for its own sake. With dignity. With the decision to stop kneeling before the opinions of people you do not even respect. If that speaks to you, stay with me. What comes next may change the way you see yourself forever. The moment you begin living for approval, your life quietly splits in two. One version of you speaks, chooses, and moves with honesty. The other watches from behind glass, calculating every word, every gesture, every possible reaction. That second self becomes a prisoner, and the bars are made of imagined opinions. You walk into a room and suddenly you are no longer present. You are performing. You are editing your own soul in real time, hoping no one notices the fear beneath the smile. And the cruelest part is this: most of the people you fear are too busy thinking about themselves to judge you the way you think they do. The spotlight you feel on your face is often only in your mind. Yet many men and women spend decades shrinking their desires, softening their truth, and abandoning their calling because they cannot bear the possibility of disapproval. They become polite in the worst sense of the word. Not kind, not wise, just careful. Careful not to offend, careful not to stand out, careful not to be seen. But a life built on caution slowly becomes a life of surrender. There comes a point when you must ask yourself a hard question. Who exactly are you trying to impress? The neighbor who never built anything? The friend who mocks what he fears? The crowd that applauds success but punishes honesty? If a man does not respect the voices shaping his choices, then he is not being guided. He is being controlled. A king does not need every face in the kingdom to smile at him. He does not panic when the servant whispers, when the fool laughs, or when the crowd misunderstands his silence. He knows his duty. He knows his character. He knows that dignity is not awarded by the public. It is forged in private. And this is the lesson so many never learn. Respect for yourself is born the moment you stop negotiating your worth with people who offer none. Imagine the difference in your posture, your voice, your decisions, when you no longer ask, "Will they like me?" and instead ask, "Is this true?" That single change can transform a timid life into a purposeful one. Because truth has a weight that approval never will. Approval changes with moods, trends, and gossip. Truth remains. It steadies you when the world becomes noisy. If this message is already hitting something deep inside you, take a second to like the video and let it settle in, because what comes next will show you why letting go of approval is not rebellion, but freedom. And once you see that clearly, you may never look at your life the same way again. At some point, every person who lives by the opinion of others reaches the same breaking point. It may not look dramatic from the outside. No one sees the moment you lower your voice in a meeting, or laugh at a joke that insults you, or agree with something you don't believe just to keep the peace. But inside, something is always being traded away. A little truth here, a little dignity there, until one day you look at your own life and realize you have been editing yourself for an audience that never truly knew you. That is the hidden cost of approval. It does not just make you nervous. It makes you divided. One part of you wants to speak honestly, take bold action, and live with integrity. The other part whispers, be careful. They might think you are arrogant. They might laugh. They might leave. And so you hesitate. You shrink. You wait for permission from people who are too busy worrying about themselves to guide your life. The truth is, most people are not watching you nearly as closely as you imagine. They are caught in their own fears, their own insecurities, their own private battles. The mind exaggerates the spotlight, making every mistake feel permanent, every silence feel exposed, every decision feel like a public trial. But once you see this illusion for what it is, the spell begins to weaken. You realize you are not standing in front of a courtroom. You are standing at the edge of your own life, and the question is not whether they approve. The question is whether you respect yourself enough to move. Picture a man sitting in his car before walking into a family gathering, a job interview, or a room full of people who have already decided who they think he is. His hands are still. His breathing is controlled. Not because he has become cold, but because he has stopped asking the world for a blessing he should have given himself long ago. That is where real strength begins. Not in performance, not in charm, in inner alignment. And this is where the old wisdom becomes practical. Marcus Aurelius understood that a man cannot control the opinions of others, only the discipline of his own mind. If their judgment can destroy your peace, then they are occupying a throne they never earned. Why let the applause of strangers shape your character? Why let the criticism of people you would never trade places with decide your path? If this is hitting something real in you, take a moment and like the video, because what we are uncovering here is not a theory. It is a life pattern many people have been obeying for decades. And ask yourself honestly, how many choices have you made just to avoid being misunderstood? Because once you answer that, you are ready for the next step, the one that separates a weak man from a sovereign one. The moment you begin to see this clearly, something inside you changes. You realize that most of the pressure you have been carrying was never really strength, it was performance. A fragile performance designed to survive the room, survive the gossip, survive the possibility that someone might misunderstand you. But a man or woman who lives like that is not truly living. They are negotiating their existence one reaction at a time. Think about how much energy it takes to manage an image, to rehearse the perfect answer, to hide the honest opinion, to soften your voice so nobody feels challenged, to laugh when you are not amused, to agree when every cell in your body says no. That kind of life drains the spirit. It makes you busy, but not powerful. Keeps you socially safe, but internally divided. And the worst part is that after enough years, people start calling your fear personality. They say you are just easygoing, just private, just respectful. But deep down, you know the truth. You are disappearing in plain sight. This is where the inner war becomes impossible to ignore. One part of you wants dignity. It wants to stand upright, speak plainly, and stop apologizing for existing. The other part is terrified. It whispers that if you become too honest, too firm, too visible, you will be rejected, mocked, or left behind. So you hesitate, you shrink, you betray yourself in small ways and call it peace. Yet peace built on self-abandonment is not peace at all. It is surrender wearing a polite smile. There is a reason Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. What you feed in private becomes your character in public. If you rehearse weakness, you will live weak. If you rehearse courage, you will begin to move with authority. Not arrogance, not coldness. Authority, the kind that does not need to announce itself. The kind that enters a room and does not ask permission to be real. And here is the strange truth. Once you stop chasing approval from people you do not respect, your life becomes lighter. You stop bending for audiences that never carried your burdens. You stop handing out your self-worth like currency to strangers. You stop letting unqualified voices sit on the throne of your identity. That is not rebellion. That is maturity. If this is hitting home, take a moment and let it land. Because the next step is not just understanding the trap. The next step is training yourself to walk through judgment without flinching. And once you learn that, everything changes. The moment you understand that most judgment is far less powerful than it feels, something inside you begins to loosen. The mind has a way of inflating the crowd, turning a few glances, a few comments, a few imagined reactions into a tribunal. But in truth, most people are too busy carrying their own insecurities to study yours. They are thinking about their bills, their regrets, their appearance, their failures, their private fears. The spotlight you feel on your back is often only a shadow cast by your own anxiety. And once a man sees that clearly, he can begin to move differently. He stops rehearsing every sentence before he speaks. He stops editing his truth to fit into rooms that were never built for his dignity. He no longer apologizes for taking up space, for having standards, for refusing to shrink himself to make weak people comfortable. There is a calm that enters a man when he realizes he does not need permission to exist with strength. That calm is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is the peace that comes from no longer arguing with your own conscience. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He knew that if you anchor your value in what others say, you hand over your freedom to people who may not even be worthy of your attention. And what a fragile way to live that is, always waiting for nods, always fearing frowns, always measuring your worth by the temperature of the room. A king does not ask the crowd whether he is a king. He governs by principle. He stands by duty. He answers to something higher than applause. This is where the inner battle becomes real. One part of you still wants to be liked, to be chosen, to be praised. Another part of you knows that every time you betray your truth just to be accepted, you pay with a piece of your soul. You feel that cost in the quiet moments, in the tired eyes, in the swallowed words, in the life you keep postponing because you are afraid of being judged by people who have not built anything worth admiring. So the training begins here, not in speeches but in small acts of courage. Say what you mean what you say, keep your posture, keep your standards. Allow silence when you would normally rush to please. Let people misunderstand you sometimes. Let them be disappointed if your integrity requires it. You do not become strong by avoiding discomfort. You become strong by refusing to be ruled by it. If this truth is landing with you, give this a like so more people can hear it. And ask yourself honestly, whose opinion has been steering your life and what has it already cost you? Because in the next moment, we go deeper into what it really means to become immune to ridicule, rejection, and even applause. When a man finally stops kneeling before the opinions of others, something quiet but profound happens inside him. The noise does not disappear. People still judge. They still whisper, misunderstand, and project their fears onto your life. But the spell is broken. Their voices no longer sit on the throne where your conscience belongs. You begin to walk with a steadier step, not because the world has become kinder, but because you have become stronger. That is the real victory, not the applause, not the validation. The victory is when you can look at your own reflection and know you did not betray yourself today. You spoke the truth when silence would have been easier. You held your ground when shrinking would have won approval. You made the hard choice, the noble choice, the choice that builds a life instead of decorating a mask. And this is where many people discover a painful truth. The opinions they feared were never as powerful as they believed. Most people are too busy fighting their own insecurities to judge you for long. Their praise is temporary. Their criticism is temporary. Their attention is temporary. But your character, once forged, remains. That is why Marcus Aurelius understood what weak men still struggle to learn. If something is outside your control, it has no authority over your soul. So let them misunderstand you. Let them call you too much, too quiet, too bold, too different. Let them talk. A king does not lose sleep over the barking of those who do not wear a crown. He stays focused on the work, on the standard, on the path. He does not need every room to welcome him. He brings his own dignity into the room. And if this message has stirred something in you, if you felt that old burden lift even slightly, then take that as a sign. Not a sign that you need more approval, but a sign that you are ready to live differently. Like this video, if you understand what it means to reclaim your own name from the mouths of others. Ask yourself honestly, whose approval have you been chasing and what has it cost you? Sometimes the question is the beginning of freedom. If you are ready to keep walking this path, to strengthen the mind, sharpen your discipline, and build a life that does not bow to fear, then stay close. Subscribe and continue this journey with me. The next lesson will go even deeper into the habits that turn self-respect from an idea into a way of life.